One. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy to exit highly appreciated cryptocurrency, business, or real estate using something called the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way for you to exit and defer millions of tax so you can create and preserve more wealth or help those you serve and do the same. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, and crypto minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. By the way, we're also streaming on expertcresecrets.com for those out there. Thank you for listening. I'm excited about our next guest. He's out of Manhattan Beach, California. And for those who don't know that area, it's one of the most beautiful areas in all of California. It's kind of a hidden gem, Hermosa Beach. That area, it's wonderful. And he is passionate about blockchain, passionate about contactless ordering hospitality service, and the future of Bitcoin, which is what we're going to be talking about. In fact, he is the co-founder of BarPay and also the co-founder of Haste Arcade, and he's the VP of marketing. And so we're going to be talking about that, his story, and so much more. Please welcome to the show with me, Joe Pinto. Joe, how are we doing?
Brett, thank you. I'm doing great. And way to get the secret out about Manhattan Beach. Thanks.
Yeah, I know, right? You got to try to keep it under the radar as best you can, but it is a beautiful place. So, Joe, for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Sure. So just quickly, I'm Joe. I was born and raised in the Los Angeles area. Grew up playing baseball, went to the University of Southern California, played baseball there, played professionally for a handful of years after that. At which point I met through the minor leagues what turned out to be one of my co-founders, Daniel Wagner. We met in the Chicago White Sox minor league system, and basically through the minor leagues, you go to a lot of bars and restaurants after games. You typically have about an hour worth of time in between the game and curfew, because you don't get done until 11 o'clock. So we just had a lot of inefficiencies and bad experiences for getting credit cards in small towns and then getting on the bus the next day and all that. So that led us to founding BarPay, as you had mentioned, in 2014, 2015, when our careers both ended that year. And basically, we had talked during our baseball time and both had the same ideas after baseball, what we wanted to do. We knew we wanted to, start our own businesses and try and, be entrepreneurs and basically grow stuff that way. And in doing so, we came up with the concept BarPay, which was from our frustrations of going to bars and restaurants late night in the minor leagues. But as that kind of relates to this conversation, through those learnings in BarPay, which what we do basically is customers can scan a QR code. They can order and pay for their food and drinks right from their phone. So we've been doing this since 2015, 2016, long before the pandemic, but you're starting to see a lot of QR codes now in restaurants. But through those experiences, we had to learn all about credit card processing. And that was how we, somewhat stumbled upon Bitcoin back in 2014, 2015, when it was still this technology that you could use. It had significant utility in the sense that I could actually send you money faster and cheaper than, via credit card transactions. So in our minds, we started thinking, wow, if we could utilize this somehow within BarPay, we could really undercut the credit card processing market. That could really give us a competitive advantage. We never got around to doing that. It's been a long time, and growing that business was difficult as it was. But that led to us, continuing to follow the story of Bitcoin, seeing the things that had happened over the years. And it was early last year, January 2021, when we were pretty frustrated, actually, just in the sense that, we're watching TV, we're watching the price of this thing, BTC, just continue to go up. Yet from our perspective, it had lost all of the utility that we had grown fond of. The reason that we found it in the first place, we weren't necessarily like price speculating or investing, quote unquote, thinking that we were going to make money from, the price going up. We were just looking at it as an extremely interesting technology because of what it could do to the credit card processing rates that we had experienced through BarPay. So, like I said, last year in January, our frustrations led us to build a small application, which is a game that we called Haste. We use the Bitcoin SV blockchain, which to our research is the blockchain that most closely follows the original Bitcoin white paper that Satoshi Nakamoto wrote, where the title is Peer-to-Peer Electronic Cash. And basically what that means is, this should be something that I could spend on casual transactions. Can I go buy a cup of coffee with this? And the answer nowadays, at least with BTC, with Ethereum, these major blockchains that people talk about, you can't use it as cash. It's basically just a speculative asset at that point. So anyways, we used the Bitcoin SV blockchain to demonstrate the utility of blockchain technology through what's called like micropayments. So being able to spend a penny at a time or a fraction of a penny, and what the different types of business models you can do with that is. So we ended up building this thing called the Haste Arcade. And this is the last little bit, and then I'll take a pause here. But Haste Arcade uses Bitcoin SV, uses blockchain technology to, if you play a game, you make a leaderboard. Maybe it costs you a penny to play that game or 10 cents or whatever. But if you make the leaderboard, anyone that plays after you, you're going to get a subsequent instant leaderboard payout for being on the leaderboard. So I might go and play a game of Pac-Man for 20 cents. I get a score, say I'm number 29 on the leaderboard. I get 0.1% of every subsequent gameplay until I'm no longer on that leaderboard. You come and play that Pac-Man game after me for 20 cents. I get a small portion, maybe half of a penny. So at scale, with a lot of people doing this, it gives gamers a new way to basically monetize things that they're already doing in very casual games.
This is really cool. We're going to dive into all these things in the future of Bitcoin SV. And by the way, if you want to connect with Joe right now, you can go to hastearcade.com, hastearcade.com, and that's HASTE arcade.com. Joe, before we geek out about all things gaming and getting pieces of some action here and cryptocurrency and payless peer-to-peer systems, all this, which is really cool. I want to take one other step back, Joe. I believe we've all been given certain gifts in this life, and these gifts have been given to us to be a blessing and help to others. Some people call them strengths, some people call them superpowers. I think they're God-given gifts, and they're here to help us to help others. So I'm curious, go back to those days, and maybe it's the Little League days. You're hitting that first home run, and you're getting to know who you are, and people are building into you. Like, where do you feel like are your one or two strengths that you've been given, and how does that help how you help and bless people today?
It's a really interesting question. I'd be curious to hear how you answer that also, but I would say I've always been somewhat of an eternal optimist. And I think as that relates to your question is, whether things are going well or going poorly, like I can always put on, a happy face basically. And I had a coach one time who would always say, like, act different than you feel. If you're not on the best that day, you can act differently, and that'll, other people will pick up on that, and they'll think, oh, there's a positive outcome that we can get from this. Let's keep a positive mentality on things. So I think that's been one of my biggest blessings is basically just being able to approach any situation, regardless of what's been happening, to me, internally, externally, whatever's going on in the world, and just try to look at things through a very positive light. And I think that does wear off on other people as well.
Absolutely love it. The internal optimist, act different than you feel. That's some good wisdom and good encouragement today. Great. Now let's try to apply that theme as we dive into the future of Bitcoin SV. So let's what's the secret here? So what's the number one secret to unlocking the future of Bitcoin SV?
I think it's learning about it. I think that a lot of people, who have gotten in the crypto space within the last few years, misled is a strong word, but I'm going to use it. I think they've been misled by the mainstream narrative that's kind of been developed around BTC, which for those that are listening, BTC is the ticker symbol for what most people think is Bitcoin. It's trading, around $40,000 right now. And it's the main one. It's the one that most people have heard of. However, if you actually go back, way back when Bitcoin and the white paper first came out, 2008, 2009, and you learn about what the technology was supposed to be and what it could do at the time versus what it's turned into, I think that's where a lot of people just, they don't know these things. They don't necessarily know the history of what Bitcoin was supposed to be. And what that is, like we had already touched on, is a peer-to-peer electronic cash, something you can use in casual payments. I can go buy a cup of coffee with it, and pay a minimal fee to send the $5 for my cup of coffee. Versus BTC right now, the transaction fees, they're ranging anywhere from $1 up to $50, depending on how much volume's going on that actual blockchain. And when you think about a peer-to-peer cash, no one in their right mind is going to go spend $5 to buy a coffee and pay $50 in fees to go and send it. Same thing with Ethereum. The fees are around the same amount. So it just, in my perspective, thinking back to what Bitcoin originally was, there were two key things that were giving it value. It was useful, so I could send it, and I could send it extremely quickly and extremely cheaply, and it was scarce. So it had utility And then it was scarce in the sense that there's only 21 million of these. So that's going to obviously give it value over the long term that I think should appreciate. So in essence, I think what people, should learn about Bitcoin SV, or if they're interested in getting involved in crypto, and a lot of my friends, for example, will just say, I just don't get it. Like, why is this thing worth so much? Like, what can you do with it? And I kind of scratch my head when I look at the one that's, $40,000. I'm like, I don't know what you can do with it, to be honest. It does seem like it's just kind of this quote unquote digital gold narrative, which you won't find that one place in the white paper where it talks about it being just an asset that you hold and digital gold and all that. I think that's nonsense. I think what it is the people that are looking to actually build and utilize blockchain within their applications, like what we've done with Haste. I think Bitcoin SV is what actually follows those original fundamentals that the white paper had set out. And just to give you an example of what that could mean, micropayments. So everyone's familiar with, subscription-based models right now. Like if I wanted to read an article in the Wall Street Journal, I start reading on it. If I don't have a subscription, once I scroll through the first paragraph, I get a pop-up basically saying, hey, to continue, you have to sign up for $14.99 a month or whatever it is to be subscribed to the Wall Street Journal. Well, I might not like all the content that they put out. I might just want to read this article. So now I'm missing out on that content. The Wall Street Journal is missing out on that revenue because I would gladly pay 25 cents or 50 cents to be able to read the rest of that article instead of having to, sign up for the subscription and create a new account. And, up until actual blockchain and Bitcoin in its original form were created, there was no way to process transactions of that small of an amount because of the fees associated with credit cards. So in terms of, I guess, trying to get people to understand the utility of blockchain, one of the things I think that it really does is it changes the current internet model, which is ad-based and subscription-based, to micropayment-based. And that's basically what we're trying to prove with the Haste Arcade.
Excellent. So education on the useful utility, if we could go back to its first original intent, like how do we get there, right? Because it's basically, It's morphed into digital gold where somebody can buy it, and it went so high that if they wanted to purchase something, the challenge becomes it's not very, it's expensive, right? I mean, they have tax, right? There's tax on it. It's a taxable transaction. It's no longer just like this peer-to-peer thing. It's worth so much. I mean, we had a client who bought Bitcoin for $50,000, and this is $30,000 to $50,000 at a very, very early adoption rate, and it went to $50 million. Okay, and so she never exited. She never sold. She's like, if I sell, I'm gonna get hammered in tax, and B, like, I believe in the future of Bitcoin. Like I feel really good about it. She owned no other coin, by the way. It was just simply Bitcoin, and then she found us, and then we helped her defer taxes. She exited $5 million of that, deferred about $2 million of tax. But the reason she did that was not only to defer the tax, but she had a place to put the money. And the place was a brand new startup company, a tech company, kind of like a Khan Academy, with her former college roommate. And she retired from the big tech company, and she started her dream. And so I think that's so important to have both parts of it, right? Like what do you want to do with the wealth? What can it actually do for you? But if it's just out there in digital land, and we sold at 54,000 a coin, and it went up to 68, 69,000, and then it obviously dropped back about 35,
Yep.
Now it's about 40. And so you have a lot of this capital that's sitting that wants to do these different things, but feels trapped by capital gains tax. So that's part of what we do. So I love what you're talking about. What you're saying is on the other side, by the way, if you want to learn more about that, anyone, you can go to capitalgainstaxlist.com to learn more about that. But what you're saying on your side is, now let's bring the utility back by doing these micro payments. So break down Haste Arcade and like how that works. Give us like that technology and what you're doing there.
Well, yeah, and to actually hit on what you just said, right? The mainstream thought process right now is I purchase Bitcoin at price X, I sell it price Y, and then I pay the taxes on top of that. Well, what if you never sold because there was actual utility where you're now using this Bitcoin to pay for your casual transactions? I don't know what the tax ramifications of that would be, but I don't think it would be quite what the capital gains are if you're just if merchants are actually accepting the coin. So you're never actually cashing it out is what I think the world could get to if something like Bitcoin SV were to catch on with the mainstream and people actually understood, hey, I can use this as a payment mechanism. It's not just an investment asset. So in essence, what Haste Arcade is trying to do is just show that utility. So you can go to the arcade right now. You can play any of the games that are in there. You can play them for free if you're not comfortable with crypto because the games are fun in general. But if you do want to actually try to earn and this whole play to earn concept that's pretty big right now in gaming, you can go ahead and you can say, hey, I'm going to play this game. I'm going to spend a penny to play it, or I'm going to spend 25 cents or a dollar or $10, whatever your appetite is. But let's just go with the penny example. Yep, there you go. Because, pennies, we're talking about micropayments. You go, you spend that penny, you play the game. If you get on the leaderboard, anyone that plays that game after you, you're going to get a percentage of the penny that they played. And now we're talking about hundreds of a penny. So this is very, very small amounts, which at face value, it's like, okay, who's excited about that? Well, if you actually have, hundreds of thousands, millions of people playing, now all of a sudden being on that leaderboard is real income. It's real revenue. And an example I'll give, when we first launched this about, I think it was in January last year, a VC company got wind of it and they wrote an article basically applying what we call instant leaderboard payouts, so ILPs, to the game developers of Flappy Birds. And they estimated that in Flappy Bird's heyday had roughly 50 million people a day playing. And from that, the game developers were making about $50,000 a day in advertising revenue. So those would be the little pop-up ads you see before you get to play the game. They're annoying and nobody likes them. Well, they said that if they would have been implementing the instant leaderboard payout model instead of the ad-based revenue model, the game developers would have gone from making $50,000 a day to $2.8 million a day. And that's with those same people playing at the half penny level. So basically, it would have greatly increased the amount of revenue that they could have been doing all through micropayments. And the gamers that are playing, they're not getting any advertisements anymore. They're just spending a penny or a half a penny to play that game. The person that would have been sitting on top of the leaderboard, instead of just getting the feeling of like, hey, cool, I have the high score, they would have actually been making about $200,000 a day from all the subsequent leaderboard payouts that were going to them. So I think, from a game developer standpoint, from a gamer standpoint, it's introducing new revenue streams. And that's really what the power of micropayments does. So, we have our Hey Starkey, obviously an example. I spoke about the Wall Street Journal subscription model versus if I could just read an article and pay a micropayment per article that I wanted to read. I think that could be a different type of business model. But in essence, we're just focused on applying, blockchain technology to real world businesses.
It's amazing. You go to hastearcade.com, hastearcade.com. I grew up playing video games and still dabble a little bit with my kids. Kids are heavy into Fortnite right now. They're battling. Yep. They're learning communication, teamwork, strategy, weaponry, helicopters, tanks, yep, cars, how to heal one another. Like if someone goes down, and grab the little card to go reboot them. And you watch these movies like Ready Player One, and you're like, wow, yep, is that like the future of everything? And so what you're saying is, hey, we're taking this and we're making it an incentive for the leaderboard, for the leaders, right, who are performing in competition, which brings more people in to yep, get a piece of some of the action. Like, is that a fair summary so far?
Absolutely. And I think you can apply that beyond gaming. Basically anything that you could put a competitive edge on, you could apply this leaderboard concept to.
Yeah, I love it. That's so cool. And you played baseball growing up. I played basketball and football growing up. Played a little bit of baseball too before they made you focus. You know what I mean? Like, yep, you got to do this. And I'm like, okay, and so we did that. But I think that's really great. I mean, there's different models out there, like the EXP commercial real estate model. There's a similar thing where they basically said, hey, how do we make real estate an incentive for all the people that are doing the thing, selling the real estate, get a little bit more piece of the action, encourage other people to come and get a little more piece of the action. And they went completely virtual, right? They're the metaverse first real estate brokerage company. I mean, others kind of did, but they yep, really did it on a higher level. And they've built, it's 80,000 agents. It's worldwide, the fastest growing real estate company in the history of real estate. I'm a part of that too. As a real estate broker, we were always felt like we were training our competition, weren't necessarily getting paid for it. And then now they said, no, let's cut out a lot of the middle folks, a lot of the overhead that's not necessarily adding value to the agent or the client. Let's get rid of the brick and mortar. And then these small amounts of payments as people close deals, let's share in that. And so that's what you're doing. So somebody comes in and they're the top leader, and are they inviting their friends to come in as well? Like, how does that translate in like the real world for getting paid?
Yeah, they can. But one of the things that we're focused on is, you think about the mainstream crypto world right now, and really the only companies you've ever seen advertise, to a large market are the exchanges. It's hey, come here and trade your crypto. there hasn't really been a product yet that's been marketed to the mainstream. It's like, hey, this is, X product powered by the blockchain, and here's why that's cool. That's what we're doing. So we're spending money now on social media, paid advertising, Google ads, and all that, because we're not worried. Like, we're not focused on, hey, we're going to teach you how to use crypto and all the cool things about it. We just use the technology because we think this leaderboard payout is something that gamers are going to enjoy. And the fact that crypto is behind it, like, if they want to learn about that, so be it. If they don't have to care. They can just come and play the games. So that's what we're trying to kind of bridge the gap is, yeah, we're a blockchain company, but we're promoting to the mainstream as if we're just another gaming company with games that have a cool, payout incentive.
That is so cool. Absolutely love it. By the way, you can learn more about Haste Arcade by going to hastearcade.com, and this is also with Joe Pinto at hastearcade.com. Excellent. So let's shift a little bit here to the kind of the capital gains tax part of this, and it's also business entrepreneurs, right? Because at a certain point, you might exit your business. You might exit real estate. You live in Manhattan Beach. You got the house on the. In fact, we just did a case study. We call it DST Man on the Beach. Where Man in the Street in Manhattan Beach, where it was a $5 million sale of a house. They had lived there for 25 years. Their basis is around like $1 million. Mm-hmm. And they have this huge gain, and they're looking to exit and have this huge capital gains tax. But I want to apply it to cryptocurrency because I know you're not in the business of the wealth building of that. I am curious, like, what would you say is the biggest frustration when it comes to capital gains tax deferral with exiting businesses or real estate, like in your entrepreneurial career?
We're kind of going through it right now with BarPay in the sense that, that company is based in California. We've been here for 5 or 6 years. We're at the point now where revenue has gotten to, an exciting number, and we have the opportunity possibly to exit within the next 12 to 24 months. But we're, us specifically, we're looking at California and the taxes that we're going to incur just for being in this state versus, if we were to move to Florida and live there for, I think it's like 6 months, more than 51% of the ownership has to be in that state or it's something like that. But basically, we're looking at these things. And the truth is, from a founder's perspective, I'm not, a tax expert. I don't know a lot of these things. I had no idea that there was different tax ramifications in California versus Florida for the sale of a company, for example. So I think that, from my perspective, it's just becoming aware of these things. And, when you're a founder, you're running this podcast, there's a million different things that you're worried about on a daily basis. Taxes are usually not at the forefront of my mind compared to, you got customers who are freaking out about this, or you've got a new employee who needs to get trained on that. And it's just, there's so many different moving pieces. So I think it's something that, it can sneak up on you. And I wish that I had a better background and more knowledge on this side and people that, would have helped me at an early point in founding these companies, basically, have a better understanding of this. And then when you think about Haste, we're in a whole nother, galaxy here with cryptocurrency and all the regulations that are still kind of getting figured out with that. So we're even looking, because we're dealing in micropayments, is each one of those transactions a taxable event? How do you tax a 100th of a penny? It's just, this is all stuff that hasn't been seen before. So in terms of the capital gains, I'm probably not the best person to speak exactly on all this. I just
it's sharing though. This is real stuff, right? I mean, we just closed a $12.75 million deal in San Diego for some clients, and they didn't know this existed until a month ago, and then they found me on YouTube and a podcast, and all of a sudden we're like, fast forward, jumping all in here, right? But it deferred millions of dollars of tax for them. It's really powerful, especially California, because California is 13.3%, right? Mm-hmm. Places like Nevada or Texas or Florida have zero capital gains tax, mm-hmm. right? And so that's huge. And then you have federal of 20%. Then you have Obamacare of 3.8. So quickly, like if your businesses were, let's say, $20 million, right? Or let's say 10 million is easier. $10 million. California, it's like 37 to 40%. And you have, especially if it's a tech startup and it's a zero basis, I mean, that's huge. Now you can defer all that and you can invest into crypto or businesses or real estate, all tax deferred, and people's minds explode. But we do this with IRAs and 401ks, right? We do it with 1031 exchanges. Yep. But you're right. The key is hiring the who, not being the how. And the key with the founders and the entrepreneurs we work with is go make the business, go grow it. When you go to exit, we'll be there for you. And so if anyone wants to learn more about that, then go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com, capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to learn more about that. That being said, are you ready, Joe, for the lightning round?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you go back to your 25-year-old self or your 20-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget you make sure to tell yourself to do?
Learn how to program.
I like that. Number two,
Learn
what's
how
the
to
number one
program.
book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
The 48 Laws of Power. And that's, if you have a dark side, it's pretty powerful stuff. It's probably good to know either way, but.
Perfect. 48 Laws of Power. Question number three, what are you most curious about right now?
I mean, we're on capital gains tax podcast. I'm very curious as to what else I could learn about this. Obviously, I'm kind of a rookie in the space, but yeah, I don't know. Programming again is something that I've been trying to do for the last year or so. My co-founder Dan, he started programming about 3 years ago, and it's been amazing to see the progress he's made and what he can do now. I think it's just a fascinating language that, looking to the future, I think people will need to basically have that type of skill if they're going to want to be in some type of, significant capacity in the working place.
Excellent. Yeah, it makes me want to get my kids going into some programming. I mean, they're doing like the Minecraft stuff, and I guess I've heard that's like good for their brains if they're looking to get into computers kind of stuff. So, next question is this: what's your favorite leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
Michael Jordan once said, "Fear is an illusion." And I remember reading that when I was like a little kid, but it kind of clicked more recently within the last couple of years. Fear is an illusion. And it really is. It's just your mind, kind of taking control of your thoughts instead of the other way around.
Excellent. Second to last question. If you could go back in history, meet with one person in baseball, we're going to make it specific, who would it be and why?
Wow. I'll say Mickey Mantle, guy could really play and seemed like he liked to party a little bit. So he'd be an interesting one.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just down in San Diego at the Hotel del Coronado, and they had a picture of Babe Ruth sitting with, I don't know, some president or something on the wall. It's a historic building, and it's like everyone visit it. And I was just like, wow, that would be pretty cool to like be here when Babe Ruth is here, right? It's pretty cool. Awesome. Last question, Joe. After all your success, growing your businesses that you've grown, helping the people that you've helped, playing baseball on a high level like you did, how do you stay centered in your values, and how do you stay encouraged? What's like the number one habit you're practicing to make sure you're charging forward to reach new heights?
I think it's consistency. So having like a routine on a daily basis that you can basically fall back on. So those are your fundamentals, and then perseverance. I think that's, especially in the entrepreneur world, if you can persevere, I think you can basically do anything.
Fantastic. Joe, for those who want to get in touch with you, what's the best place for them to find you?
You can email me, joe@haystarcade.com. You can find @haystarcade on Twitter or on Instagram. We're fairly active.
Joe, I want to thank you for being on the show. It's Joe DePinto. I want to encourage you to keep using the gifts and talents you've been given, such as being an internal optimist, but more so than not just having that, but acting on that even when you don't feel like it, right? Encourage us to do the same and keep making a difference in the world, what you're doing. So cool. I love what you're doing. Keep it up. And I want to also thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a deferred sales trust to exit your highly appreciated business, real estate, cryptocurrency, all tax deferred, is an amazing way to create and preserve more wealth. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to learn more about that. We also have our free mastermind masterclass on the Deferred Sales Trust. You can come and join us on a Zoom where we chat and geek out about the Deferred Sales Trust and how it works, what it is. Download our free ebook, and then also be on the lookout. We're on the way. We're very close to releasing the Building a Tax Deferral Exit Strategy. It is my first book with a lot of really smart people in the book as well, and it's the proven playbook for unlocking your ideal wealth plan when selling assets of any kind for yourself or your clients. So look for that to drop soon on Amazon and on the website capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Remember, all the expert CRE secrets people, we also appreciate you out there. We can't wait to connect with all of you. Please go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, rate, review, all of this. Give it a